The Sisters of St. Joseph were founded in 1650 in the city of Le Puy, France. The city of Le Puy has been a destination of pilgrims for over 1,000 years. Its striking volcanic peaks have drawn seekers of healing and spiritual renewal for centuries. Monuments are built atop each peak, including the statues of the Virgin Mary and St. Joseph, as well as the Cathedral Notre-Dame de Puy. This view is atop the Rocher Saint-Michel on the outskirts of the city. We have climbed 268 stairs up the Rocher to reach the chapel dedicated to the Archangel. Built in 969, there is evidence of Roman ruins dating back to the 3rd century. The views of the city of Le Puy and the surrounding valley are absolutely breathtaking. Much of our pilgrimage is undertaken by walking, and in Le Puy by climbing. Take in the view of the surrounding area as you walk around the rock, and imagine the cool stones and the warm breeze. Remember that countless other pilgrims have walked this path, climbed these steps for over 1,000 years. Who may have gone before you? Who might you walk with today or climb with?
Can you mention that shot, Shannon would like
Yes.
to mention?
Built on another volcanic peak, the Cathedral Notre-Dame de Puy is reached by winding through the old walled city. While the small narrow passages twist and turn, we stay on track by ascending with the cathedral ever in our sights. Along the way to the cathedral, we pass numerous shops and restaurants, including our friend Martine, the lace maker. After ascending the city street, we approach the cathedral to make the final climb. It's a special feast day, and the outdoor altar remains set up to celebrate the feast of Corpus Christi. We can pause along the way, take a breath, turn around, and enjoy the view of the city before reaching the entrance of the cavernous church.
I can feel the coolness already.
As we complete the last 60 stairs, we are greeted by the coolness of the opening under the stone archways. Built in the 11th century, the first Sisters of St. Joseph would likely have prayed here at the cathedral frequently. In the mid-10th century, the city of Le Puy is established as one of the routes of the Camino de Santiago de Compostela, or the Way of St. James. Today, dozens of pilgrims still gather daily at the cathedral to begin their journey on foot to Spain. Each pilgrim receives a copy of the New Testament and a medal of the Black Madonna, and all are invited to write their prayer intentions, which are offered at masses in the following weeks. Now that we have taken in the beauty and the history of the city of Le Puy, we turn our attention to our founders, the Sisters of St. Joseph, 6 women who came together in the mid-17th century to respond to the needs of their dear neighbors. As we hear again the story of these foundations, it isn't a stretch to think of parallel conditions in our own times. France had suffered through decades of war, known as the Wars of Religion, and the city of Le Puy experienced great social and political instability, compounded by agricultural famine and the plague. The economic and class disparities of the time left many in poverty with no safety net. The city was truly beleaguered. These ordinary women of deep faith saw this suffering and felt moved to respond, to see what they could do to serve their dear neighbor. They were very practical in their approach as they witnessed this suffering. To find out what the people needed, the women divided the city, went out to the neighborhoods and asked, "What can we do for you? How can we best serve?" And if they could respond to the needs, they would. And if they did not have the resources to address the problem, they would gather others in the community to lend their assistance. This type of active ministry was unheard of for women at the time. Women religious stayed in the cloister. So in order to move freely about the city unnoticed, the sisters dressed in widow's garb. Who were these women that we see on the streets of Le Puy? Anna, Marguerite, Claudia, Anna, and Françoise. And they received guidance and support from Father Jean-Pierre Médaille, a Jesuit priest and traveling preacher. One of the greatest needs the sisters witnessed was the desperate conditions of single and widowed women. The loss of so many men in the war left them with no financial or social protection. The Sisters of St. Joseph could not abide the exploitation and indignities these women faced each day as they did whatever was necessary to provide for their families. The city of Le Puy was known for its craft of bobbin lace making, which was purchased mostly by upper class society. 2 of the first Sisters of St. Joseph were lace makers. They invited women and orphans to learn this trade so that they could earn a dignified living and have agency over their own lives. The tradition of lace making continues in Le Puy today. We will walk through a demonstration by the local school where you can see the intricacy and complexity of this skill and the focus and the joy of the student as something new and beautiful is created. As we walk, take a moment to reflect on how our work as educators continues this legacy of developing the capacities of our students so that all can flourish.
Allez, bah, si tu veux vraiment un grand I just took a metaphor. Yeah.
Bon, mais je vais, dites-moi quel est votre numéro, on va s'arranger. Je suis d'accord, hein, c'est pas tout le monde.
We'll be stopping at a lace shop on another day, maybe tomorrow. And Martine, who's the lace maker in town, that we know, is our friend, will tell you more about lace making. We're going to be passing the shop.
Near the cathedral was the city hospital and orphanage. One of our sisters ran the hospital and likely lived there. There they received the poor and orphans, and the sisters offered them what they could. At night, after walking the streets of Le Puy and carrying out their ministries, the sisters would gather in this kitchen and share their day. Jean-Pierre Madai, their Jesuit guide, taught them the 100 maxims for their spiritual practice and encouraged them to reflect on their day together, to see where God was present, and to discern their ongoing call to serve the dear neighbor. This tradition of gathering together and reflecting on their daily experiences continues today with us in the practice of sharing the state of the heart. Imagine yourself in this kitchen, gathering with your colleagues, your friends, your family around the fire, sharing your stories. Feel the coziness of the space, the warmth of the hearth amidst the cold, ancient stones. As another academic year draws to a close and we reflect on our vocation as CSSJ educators, what is on your heart? As we depart the city of Le Puy, we take a moment to imagine those who have gone before us. Who has walked upon these cobblestones? Whose feet have left impressions, felt in lingering energies of deeds done here? Whose feet left imprints of agonies and miseries and joys that remains in memory and fact? Holy ones, soldiers, revolutionists and poor folk have trod the streets that are still here, though they are gone. The yesterdays call us to remember those who birthed us here. With gratitude, we bow our hearts to the inheritance of love they have left for us to grow in and grow into. This path has voice in the choice some women made long ago. Now the path they took stretches across the earth, and we walk in their footsteps. In the next part of our itinerary, we depart Le Puy and travel about 100 years forward in time and about 50 kilometers to the town of Bassin-Bassé. Here we begin to trace the life story of Jeanne Fontbonne, or Mother St. John Fontbonne, to whom we in the United States trace our foundations. We will share just a few moments of her incredible life of service and leadership, taking us through the towns of Bassin-Bassé, where she was born, through Monestral, Saint-Didier and Saint-Étienne, and finally to Lyon, where she founded the Mother House. In 1759, Jeanne Fontbonne was born to loving and faithful parents. Jeanne and her sister Marie spent much time at the local convent of the Sisters of St. Joseph, as two of their aunts were sisters there. As teenagers, they went to Le Puy to be educated by the sisters, and they both entered the community, Jeanne at the age of 17 and Marie at 19. Jeanne was recognized at a young age for her maturity, her leadership, and her joyful and loving disposition. The local bishop told the Sisters of St. Joseph, "Form this one well. She will be the glory of your congregation." Jeanne and Marie accompanied their sister aunt to Monestral to open a school and hospital. Jeanne, now Sister St. John, was elected superior in Monastrol at the young age of 26. She opened a workshop that gathered women of all classes who came together for religious education, crafts, and community. She becomes known as the mother of Monastrol. The bishop so respected her that he had Mother St. John publicly bless the cornerstone of the hospital seen here. This was unheard of for a woman to have such a public honor. Mother St. John was known to gather with the sisters on the lawn of the convent, encouraging them to take time to relax and to laugh together. It is also in these years that the French Revolution gains momentum and Mother St. John is forced to take a public stand as the church in France is suppressed. Under the leadership of Mother St. John, the sisters refuse to take the constitutional oath to the revolutionist government. They are expelled from Monastrol, ultimately arrested and imprisoned at Saint-Didier. They knew they were facing execution, as 5 other sisters of St. Joseph had already gone to the guillotine. But history was on their side, and just before their execution date, the sisters were released from prison. For several years, the Sisters of St. Joseph were disbanded, and Jean and Marie lived in Bassin-Bassé with their aging parents. As the revolution finally ends and the Catholic Church is restored in France, Mother St. John is called upon to form women as sisters again. She worked tirelessly to reestablish communities across France, and she is re-elected to leadership for over 20 years. She was known to express deep love and care for every sister. She arose early every morning to walk uphill to the small Mary Chapel and pray for her sisters, returning to the convent in time for morning prayer with her community. As you enter this chapel, take a moment of peace and quiet and feel the presence of Mother St. John as she encourages us to continue to meet the needs of our own time. Over the next 3 decades, Mother St. John establishes more than 200 houses of sisters. In the 1830s, she receives a request from Bishop Rosati of St. Louis to send Sisters of St. Joseph to start schools and to educate the deaf. And in 1836, 6 sisters volunteered for this mission, including 2 of Mother St. John's nieces. The 6 sisters settled outside St. Louis and began their ministries in Cahokia and Carondelet. Over the next 50 years, the Sisters of St. Joseph expand and establish ministries from New York to Minnesota, from Canada to Idaho, from New Orleans to California. Most of our communities of Sisters of St. Joseph in the US trace our foundations to those 6 sisters who were missioned by Mother St. John. And as for Mother St. John, she was finally allowed to retire to a life of rest and prayer, and she died in Lyon in 1843 at the age of 84.
Yeah. Sorry. Fill in. I think it would be good to. If it wasn't for all this, the first 6 women and then this woman, we would not be here together. And we would not have these amazing ministries across the world that have changed the lives of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people, including us. Today, that's what we celebrate. So we're going to have a moment where we'll each have a flower and a short reading.
They had learned the total emptying of self to be filled with God. These black-robed women who carried their baskets to the poor, bathed the sick, gently tended the wounded, and lovingly gathered together the orphans in their outstretched arms. Uncommon women for an uncommon time. They were not formed by formal rule, to be the congregation of the great love of God. The world still needs their kind of loving. Getting home, Jesus. Getting home, Jesus. Someday yourself, oh,
Thank you for entering into this time of travel and reflection. It is a privilege to be a part of your journey. Let us continue to be pilgrims on the way to a world that is transformed by our charism of unifying love.